Welcome to the Vuelta Stage, 368.6 kilometers from Jaén to Cordoba. Yesterday, coming into Jaén, it was an uphill finish. Last 15 kilometers were very, very active indeed. Joaquim Rodriguez setting up his team captain Alejandro Valverde for the win yesterday in absolutely blissful conditions for racing. It was just the sort of finish that Valverde relishes. David Rebellin taking second spot. It was a finish for the Classics riders yesterday. So Valverde, for the second time this year, takes a leader's jersey on the first stage of a Grand Tour. There he is in the gold jersey of overall leader. He will be riding out, or was riding out of Jaén towards Cordoba today in that jersey, taking it off Filippo Pozzato, who had got it on the team time trial. First road stage then to Alejandro Valverde. Daniele Banati lying third overall. Igor Martinez after his speculative attack yesterday, and why not after all, lies fourth. This is where we are today in some of the hottest region of Spain. From Jaén they are moving on just slightly downhill past Matos and up the 1/3 category climb of the day today, and then it's downhill from there in towards Cordoba. The one climb of the day, the Alto de San Jerónimo, into Cordoba today. And now we go live, and this man here has been out from the very, very first point of the day. He has 80 kilometers to go, and the man from Andalusia, Carazo, is Manuel Ortega Ocana, and he's starting off in Jaén this morning. Was his hometown, getting out there and attacking straight away. Good work by the Andalusia people again. They wanted to get out and get some publicity for their team. Alejandro Valverde then on his very, very smart Pinarello, I have to say. Takes the gold jersey. And once again ends up at the beginning of Vuelta a España with the leader's jersey on his shoulders. It is a scorching day today. It is nearly 40 degrees. Cordoba, where they are going today, is pretty much records the hottest temperatures in Western Europe. Sometimes it's 40, 45 degrees there. Not quite so bad today. It's about, it started off the day at about 31. It's just bubbling under the 40 degrees today for the peloton, and many of these Spanish riders absolutely love this. It's going to be hard work towards the end. It always manages to slow things down. Such incredible heats, but a lot of the riders will absolutely love it. Hydration massively important today. A lot of riders taking on a lot of liquids, you know, 4 or 5 liters or more of liquid just coursing through them. And they need to do. There is Nicolas Roche just going past, launched a good attack yesterday. The lead for Manuel Ortega Ocaña was up to 15.5 minutes. It's under 14 minutes now, well under 14 minutes, as they begin to drag it all back today. It could be a Banati day today. It could be a day for Tom Bonan. It's just one of those days where they'll keep it together and bring back Manuel Ortega, if they possibly can. And he will be out there for as long as he possibly can to get as much benefit from exposure for his regional team as possible. Cordoba, where we're going today, ancient city. In fact, Cordoba, if you didn't know, was probably the most populated city in Western Europe during ancient times. Certainly during the end of the Roman Empire, and again during the Moorish period, it was tremendously populated. Nearly double the population in Cordoba during the Moorish occupation, or the Caliphate of Cordoba, as it is now. Incredible, really, when you think about it. It was a real center of learning, real center of culture. And once it was recaptured by the Kings of Castile. It sort of just generally, slowly, gradually declined in terms of wealth and power. But Cordoba, still a beautiful city. Philippe Gilbert sitting next door to Carlos Sastre here. And everybody just rolling along. The victor of the Tour de France, just keeping himself out of trouble yesterday. The peloton rolling through the plains towards Cordoba today. 168.6 kilometers in scorching heat, nearly 40 degrees. It can get even hotter here. It is the hottest city in Western Europe. That man there has been out for the best part of the entire day. He attacked almost immediately. They got out of Jaén. It's Manuel Ortega Ocaña of the Andalusia Carasur team. And doing his team a power of good in terms of publicity. Let's have a quick look back with Sean Kelly sitting next to me on yesterday's finish. It was a victory for Valverde, all the classics guys up at the top, Sean. It was a much more difficult finish than perhaps many of the sprinters teams would have liked, although we saw Daniele Benatti on the front. Today, quite a different day. But yesterday, Valverde takes another leader's jersey.
Yes, certainly it was a more difficult day than we all expected, and reading the interviews yesterday from some of the riders and Valverde, he said that he did not realise, a number of days ago, certainly when the race route was announced last year, that this finish would be as difficult as it was yesterday into Juan. So certainly, it was a perfect one made for him, because Valverde, as we see in the Tour of France, another situation in Plumelec, it was an uphill finish, and he won that one also in the start of a big tour. So he's a specialist at the beginning of a big tour, winning a stage, but the terrain is right for him. It was right in the tour, and yesterday once again same situation, a perfect opportunity, and they prepared it very well. We see the team on the front, and then we see Joaquim Rodriguez at about a kilometre to go, or inside the kilometre he went in the attack just to keep the pace very high and keep everybody nervous, and to make it difficult for the rest of the sprinters that were there. Valverde, he finished it off magnificently, winning by 2 seconds over everybody else. That tells us like he was, just that much stronger than the rest of the field.
Rebellin second, Balan third. So it really was a sort of classics type finish yesterday. Valverde, well, we talked about him as being a potential overall, and Carlos Sastre was saying how good he looked yesterday. He starts off pretty well early on. Won't be his day today though.
Well, difficult to see it today, because this finish is a totally different one. It's a run down in the last kilometres to the finish, so it will be more for the sprinters. But it also depends on what way they take this final climb of the day, because the third category, it's about 12 kilometres of a climb. So if it really goes, full gas on the climb, we could see a lot of the sprinters having difficulty hanging in there. And in that case, after the climb also, there's a little bit of up and down. It doesn't go downhill immediately. And if you're 20-30 seconds off at the top and it drags on, goes down for a kilometre, 2 kilometres up again, it's made it difficult to come back into the main bunch if it's going at full flight. So it could be a dangerous one for the sprinters getting left behind on this climb. And if there's some of the teams who decide to take it up for that reason, they haven't got a top sprinter, we might see them trying to up the pace. But at that stage, a climb 12 kilometres, getting close to the finish, everybody will be nervous in the earlier part of this tour. We have only the second road stage today, so I think we could see maybe a surprise as well today in this final kilometres, and maybe not as many riders as we would expect coming in for the final sprint.
Yeah, it's quite interestingly laid out again today, isn't it? The parcours, the course. We've got 8.6 kilometres in total, and the two intermediate sprints, of which you get bonus seconds, 6, 4 and 2 respectively, coming in the second half of the stage, and one coming just before the climb as well. There may be a launch pad for that. The top of the climb, as you say, it doesn't go straight down. The top of the climb coming with less than about 20 kilometres to go. So it could be another situation like yesterday. We've seen something we don't often see in Grand Tours. Lots of teams firing off lots of riders and taking the attack to everybody else. Could be the same here.
Yes, well, I think it's certainly the sprint bonifications of the intermediate sprints, they are put in a position, as we can see today once again, again. They're in the second half of the race, and the last one, the second one of the day, is at 45 kilometres to finish. I think certainly the organisers looked at that seriously, and not having him in the first 50% of the race makes it a little bit interesting, and especially in those first number of days in this race, it's very close in time, and a number of riders up there in the general classement would be saying that, you know, if I can get sprint bonifications in the final, well then maybe I could take the yellow jersey, if not today, maybe in the days to come. So I think it's certainly something that the organisers have looked at, and it's working out. We see yesterday, I think the bunch reacted that much earlier because we had Igor Martinez and the three breakaway companions out in front, and then he went on his own, and I think the bunch reacted earlier because the time bonifications were out there to be taken on that final one, and that makes the race more active in the end, certainly.
Yeah, nice little move by Martinez yesterday. It was nice to see that he was quoted afterwards saying, nothing, essentially the same phrase as nothing ventured, nothing gained. Let's get out there, give it a go, try and take the leader's jersey in a situation early in the Vuelta a España that many people would not have expected. I don't think they expected actually to be that high up after the team time trial, Euskaltel Euskadi. And they had to take their opportunities, Sean, didn't they? And they did pretty well. In fact, they've still got a whole load of riders up there. If you look at the overall classification, they've got a whole bunch of riders sitting right near the top. You've got Igor Martinez lying at 4th overall at 15 seconds, and they're not far back, maintaining the rhythm, keeping their pace up fairly high, finishing well yesterday. Igor Anton, who I reckon might turn out to be a bit of a surprise this year, actually, Igor Anton, Ruben Perez and Mikel Astaloza. So we've got 3, 4, 5 riders, and Andaluza at 19 seconds as well. So 5 riders still maintaining the pace at the top. Oh, Paolo Bettini, new rear wheel. Last time we'll see him in the World Champions jersey until we arrive at Varese, when he'll be donning the Azzurri and trying to defend that title. He says he wants to carry on for another year, Sean. We'll talk about him in a minute, but good day yesterday for Euskaltel. They tried hard to get the gold jersey, didn't get it, but they've still got men up there.
Yes, well, they certainly have got quite a number of their riders very much to the fore in the overall classement, general classement, and thanks to a very good team time trial, and it was a surprise to see them doing that sort of performance. I certainly would not have expected them to be in the top 3 in the team time trial in Granada, so thanks to that they're up there, and they have a number of riders there who are capable of doing very well, and it'll be interesting to see if they can really produce a very good performance. I think they have got that quality of rider, the general classement. We could see them some up there very much for a podium finish, and who knows, maybe a bit better, but the racing, it's certainly all to be done. But Igor Martinez, he certainly went out there yesterday and had a go, and very, very close. We see in that final sprint he was just so close to getting to it. Unfortunately for him, the run into it, the last number of kilometres was very, very difficult. It kicked uphill a lot. If it had been a flat run, well, he definitely went through, and possibility of taking that race leader jersey for today's stage. And as you said, and as he said, if you don't try, you never know. And certainly they gave it a good run yesterday.
Well, conversely, of course, if it had been even more hilly, then he might have had a chance as well. But it was just that in the middle sort of terrain that really allowed those very strong short climb sprinters, the classic type sprinters, to take him back, and their teams to do so as well. This is the man out ahead at the moment. It is Manuel Ortega from the Andalusia Carasur squad. He's been out all day so far. Just to fill you in on the details of today's route, 168.6 kilometers running from Jaén to Cordoba today. It is stage 3. The second road stage. We started off, of course, a couple of days ago with the team time trial with liquid gas victors there, and we've just been talking about Euskaltel Euskadi being the surprise second place riders. The 2 intermediate sprints today, one just outside the airport, coming at 123 kilometers in, but just before that at 88 kilometers there is another intermediate sprint at Esparreo. 6 seconds, 4 seconds and 2 seconds bonus for each of those intermediate sprints, and 4, 2 and 1 in the points classification. Interesting actually to come back to a race after the Tour de France where we've got bonus seconds. Quite nice to have the mix to watch. The one climb of the day, the Alto de San Jerónimo at 142 kilometers, third category climb, 6, 4, 2 and 1 points available there. The man in the mountains classification jersey, that dark pink, is Rezondo of this team here. Andalusia Carousel, and the crowd's loving the fact that the local boy is out there today. The gold jersey on the shoulders of Alejandro Valverde, the blue points jersey on the shoulders of David Rebellin of Gerald Steiner, and the combined jersey on the shoulders of Igor Martinez, having a good day yesterday. Cordoba, of course. There are 20 seconds, 12 seconds, 8 seconds available for the first 3 over the line, then 25 points, 20, 16, 14, 12, so on and so forth, down the line. There is Philippe Gilbert, the Walloon Belgian. Just a little bit further on than everybody else at the moment. That is the rundown of the parcours today. As we said, the hill coming towards the end of the day, starting with about 40 kilometers to go, and then really once they got over the top, there's only 20k up and down, slightly lumpy in towards Cordoba today. Immensely hot, nearly 40 degrees. It can get even hotter here. It is the hottest city in Western Europe, Cordoba. Terrific history around Cordoba. I'm not going to bore you with masses of history today, but it started off as Corduba from the Roman Empire, as part of that great province of Hispania, and it really continued its great history right the way through the Moorish invasions in the 700s and through until after the Castilian kings had taken it back into Christendom, as they say, but now has a population of just about, well, just over half of what it did during its high point during the 10th century or so. And you can just see how parched this landscape can get. Very hot for everybody today, and nobody that keen to launch the attacks until the end. Very well planned, I think, the parcours today. Right. If you want to make comments or ask questions, Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr is the address to send your questions and comments to. John in Bournemouth asking about the HD transmissions on Sky 412. I don't know is the answer to that, not being a techie. It depends on what we are getting broadcast by, from, should I say. So if, for example, you are looking at Sky High Definition channel 412. However, if it's being broadcast in 4:3, which is smaller format, it will appear as a square in the middle of the screen, unfortunately, because it's not being broadcast in high definition or widescreen. So on that channel. But no, not that brilliant at answering your tech questions. You're really just directing them in the wrong place. We're here to answer questions about the race itself and the cycling. But that is the address for you to put your questions and comments on. It is Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr. Yannick Talabaron pulled out of the Eneco Tour along with half his teammates, all preparing here for the Vuelta. Jeremy Hunt pulled out, Christoph Kern, they all disappeared, ready to come to the Vuelta a España. Let's bring back the sometimes popular, sometimes not quiz of the day question. Right, we've only been on this particular route from one city to another, from Jaén to Cordoba. In fact, it was the other way around. Only once in the history of the Vuelta have we gone between the two cities. Last time it was from Cordoba to Jaén. It was a long time ago. Can you give me the year? And can you give me the winner? It was from Priego de Cordoba to Jaén. 177 kilometers it was. Fair way back now. We've got the year and the name of the winner. Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr is the place to come. Well, there's the Case de Pang boys just keeping an eye on Alejandro Valverde. How long will he hang on to that jersey is the question. How long would he like to hang on to the jersey? Maybe he'll let it go to somebody else in the next few days. We have some sprinters here who could may well take things over. Oscar Ferreira, for example, would like to achieve something. By the way, the merry-go-round of transfers continues. 10 minutes and 30 seconds there now is the gap between Manuel Ortega and the rest of the peloton. They're dragging it back with 60-odd kilometers to go. So it looks good for Ortega at the moment, but you know how quickly these things go down. Just look at that dry field on the far left-hand side, just the dust being kicked up by that low-flying helicopter. The rumour mill continues. As I said, people going to different teams today. The news confirmed then, there was a lot of rumour about it, that Robbie McEwen going to Katusha and joining Vladimir Karpets, Gert Stiegmans, Pozzato, of course, is going there at the end of the year. The Katusha is what was the Tinkoff squad, by the way, and they've Oleg Tinkoff has got a whole group of industries from the Russian Federation involved, and a tremendous amount of money being involved. And the idea is to create a super team. And why not, after all? Oleg Tinkoff has put a lot of money into cycling over the last 2 or 3 years. The idea is they've got a sort of 15 million euro budget, and that is spread over 3 years, and some of that money going back to Russia as well to develop cycling back in Russia. What other news have we got today? Well, Canvas, Sean's opinions on the moves from Northern Europe to Southern Europe very shortly. Although I have to say that Sean has now disappeared from the commentary booth to try and rectify our problem with the monitors. You may be seeing the race, but at the moment I'm not seeing a great deal of it. It keeps going on and off, and Sean is going off to wield a spanner and a screwdriver around the back of the booth and see if we can get some pictures live here on air. Hamilton, Tyler Hamilton. Well, it's all sorts of shenanigans with Tyler Hamilton, isn't there, over the last 2 or 3 years. Now seems to be back on top of things and finally racing at a high level. He's won the the US Pro Road Race Championships this week. Well, I've got a bit of a picture back at the moment. I can see Alejandro Valverde right in the middle of my shot. And they are just rolling along, eating up that time gap between themselves and Manuel Ortega. He's got about 10 minutes of gap at the moment. Alex and Cardiff wondering why Dennis Menchoff and Samuel Sanchez aren't racing in this year's Vuelta. Both riders made it such an interesting race last year. Always disappointed not to see Sanchez racing. What are they up to? Well, Sanchez, of course, you know, has just won the Olympic road race title. He has raced earlier on in the year in Grand Tours, just not targeting it this year, targeting the Olympic road race and targeting the World Championships as well. It's not... and we had another question actually earlier on in the week, or yesterday in fact, saying, well, why are some of these guys not racing here? Well, it just depends on how they tailor their program at the beginning of the year. Some riders will say, right, we're going to give ourselves the options this year of doing this, this and this, and other riders will say, well, we are targeting specific tours or specific races. In this case, Sanchez was targeting the Olympic road race title and also the World Championship, so the Vuelta doesn't really fit into his racing plans, having done tours earlier in the year. Dennis Menchoff, well, Menchoff fighting very hard already earlier in the year in tours, and deciding not to defend his title here in the Vuelta a España. It's just as simple as that. It's not that they're lacking in particular form, although Dennis Menchoff was in the Deutschland Tour until a couple of days ago when he pulled out through fatigue. So that maybe answers your question a little bit, Alex. Eurosportcycling@hotmail.fr. Stu asking, he's seeing Philippe Gilbert's scabby knee there a few minutes ago. Reminded me, how is Fabio Baldato after his prang in the Eneco Tour? I can tell you that Fabio was in a lot of pain. He broke his collarbone and he's also cracked a hip as well. So it's not a good end to Fabio Baldato's career. 40 years of age, wanted to finish on a high note, is not going to be able to. That's the end of his season and the end of his racing career, and he's been around for such a long time. Fabio, great shame that he won't be able to finish the season. But that is the way of it, and we're very pleased to say we've been joined on the phone by Hendrik Redont. Hello, Hendrik, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's pretty hot out there today.
I have in my car, see, it's 36 degrees at the moment.
Hey, well, it's got to get yourself a suntan. You know, wind the windows down, get a tan today. Yesterday there was a real sort of classics finish. Yesterday, your man Van Avermaet is being talked up as a really good prospect for this year's Vuelta a España. Could surprise a lot of people, not just by yourself, but by a lot of other people. How's he feeling?
Oh, he's really feeling very confident, and he also came to this Vuelta within view of stages like this. He knew that the finish in Jaén was one where guys like Bettini's and for sure Valverde's would have been very difficult and to be, but he's also very strong in those kind of finishes, so it was not so surprising for me that I saw him finishing in the first four.
Yeah, it's a very good finish for him. What does the rest of the Vuelta hold for him? Because he's a very aggressive, very attacking rider. Can he hold it together in the big hills?
The really big hills will be a bit of a problem, I suppose. He's not really a top climber, but I hope today with the finish in Cordoba, it's pretty hard as well, but it's something for strong guys that he can manage to get over, and also doing a very beautiful sprint in a way. So no, I think there's a few stages for him made, so we make quite some chances of having him one day or another on the podium, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Maybe even sort of stealing the gold jersey as well. Let's just move on to Popo. He didn't have the best of Tour de France, did he? And how's he? What sort of shape is he in now?
No, indeed, he was a bit disappointed in himself because he couldn't do whatever we asked him to in view of Cadel's support in Tour de France. I think this Vuelta will be where he can take some revenge on what he missed in the Tour de France itself. So anyway, I think he's in quite a good form. He's relaxed at the moment. He rested a bit, and he had also the Olympics, but in a way I think he came here with some good form, and already yesterday he tested that, and it seems we're right about it. So let's hope today we can see some more, and then towards the first time trial in a few days, then we will really see how his condition is, of course.
Yeah, of course. How do you see this Vuelta? You've looked at the course, you like it? What's the general, how do you feel about the Vuelta in general? Is it a race you enjoy attending?
I'm always enjoying the Vuelta. It's not as hectic as Tour de France. For us as a team, it's not so bad at all. You can also put in some young riders to have all the experience they need towards the continuation of their career. But I must say this year I think the Vuelta is quite hard. It's not so easy. It's lots of hills. It's a lot of mountain finishes. Already starting up in Andorra and Plabaret, but for sure with Alto de Angliru it won't be an easy race. Also, even at the end, if it's still going to be tight between a few riders, you have the time trial up to Malvacerada. So this year we can expect a lot of riders very tight at the end, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, who do you see as the big favourites? Just in your own opinion.
I think still Contador will be really, really good. If you can see that he wins the Giro just coming out of holiday, as I was reading, this Vuelta he's been preparing very, very good in his head and mentally as well as physical. So I think he's going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah, he is indeed. Just a little bit more contentious question, though, rather away from the Vuelta. We read today that your sprint king, Mr. McEwen, is leaving the team and off to Katusha at the end of the year. He didn't look particularly happy during the Tour de France. Still a good relationship there, though, I take it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I always have a good relationship with Robbie. And we had been discussing Tour de France before we went to the Tour. We explained him what was our goal, our main goal in a way, and that he would have been alone in the sprints, and he knew that in advance. So He's very professional and didn't really complain about it, but for sure he was disappointed sometimes because he knew with a little bit of support he would have been maybe taking one of those victories that he was always aiming for. But I wish him all the luck. I know that he was discussing transfer to that team, and so I suppose they can need it there, and I'm pretty sure that he will have some victories there as well, as Robbie for sure is still not burned out, so we can expect to be beating him and hoping to beat him next year, but that doesn't change anything with my relationship with Robbie, I suppose.
Excellent, that's what we like to hear. Just a quickie then, one more question before we let you go, get on with your job, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you later on in the Vuelta. Today's predictions, who do you reckon for today?
Today, it's going to be... I saw that Benati is very good already yesterday. I saw him leading out, and I don't think he's going to be dropped on that little climb. So he will be one of the favorites today, together with Bettini, I suppose. But of course, I have still Greg van Avermaet, and I'm going to aim for him, and let's hope he wins the sprint. But for sure, it's going to be finishing Benati, Bettini guys, maybe at the front, I suppose.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much for joining us, Hendrik. We'll catch up with you in the near future, maybe in 2 or 3 days' time. Have a good one today.
All right, thank you very much. See you.
Don't burn in the sun. Okay, thanks very much. It's Hendrik Gedont in the car live on the road here at the Vuelta España. We're going to take a short commercial break as they roll along towards Cordoba. Then we'll be back, Sean and I, discussing the news here on the Vuelta España 2008. Stage 3, Vuelta España, running from Jaén to Cordoba today, 168.6 kilometers. Nice to hear from Hendrik Gedont. It's nice to get them early in the Vuelta España. Hopefully we're getting a lot more of that in the coming 2 or 3 weeks. He's very upbeat about Van Avermaet's chances. He is an aggressive rider. He could do something in the next few days.
Yes, I think certainly he proved it yesterday, and when you see somebody up yesterday, it's a good pointer for the next number of days. That difficult running yesterday and finishing fourth for Van Avermaet was a very good performance. And we hear Hendrik talking that he's hoping for some things from the next number of days, and he's that style of rider. The difficult finish might be the better one for him, but certainly he's an up-and-coming sprinter, and he has certain qualities as a sprinter. So it's going to be interesting. And also for the Silence Lotto team, I think they're going to be on the look around as well for the faster guys within the team, and maybe try and develop a bit more as Robbie is leaving for next year, as Hendrik said. So it's certainly interesting time for them. Of course, McEwen so familiar in that Lotto jersey for so many years. It's going to be a change for us all, really, to see him in different colours next year.
It is going to be strange. I think he might get a bit of a renaissance actually, because he's not been happy, and I don't think, terribly professional that he is, he's not been terribly happy. He's not had a really good year for he had about 18 months really, if you think about it, and I think it might do him a lot of good.
Well, certainly, yes. It hasn't been the brilliant, most brilliant time of his career, and this past season hasn't been a great one, and he has a few injuries as well. He fell in the in Portugal in Algarve, the Tour of Algarve. He fell very badly there. I see him crashing
right at the beginning of the year.
Yes, and that put him out for quite a few weeks. He was injured, not able to race, and it's such a vital moment at that time of year when you're starting in February and you go out for a number of weeks, not able to train first of all, and more so not able to race, because you lose so much on the rest and they go that much ahead. And I think he had problems catching up with that, and then he got, I think, some sort of an infection a bit later on, so he was in difficulties getting his form at the beginning of the year, and we see it in the Giro. He had problems pulling off the sprint victories that we so familiar with over the past number of years, and then the light started to shine better, I suppose, in the Tour of Switzerland, where he won a stage, and it looked like he would have a good Tour of France, but unfortunately recently, not at his best, and then the team situation not helping, as Redon said. He knew going into the Tour, but you're always disappointed when you're in there in the race and you see the other guys with 3 and 4 riders around them in the last 20 kilometres, you're there on your own, jumping from wheel to wheel. It is very demoralising when you start finishing 4th and 5th, and you say to yourself, well, if I had guys to give me a dig out in that last 20 kilometres, I could have done so much better. So I think definitely I agree with you, a change of colour next year could do him a world of good.
I don't know quite what colours they're going to have. I think it's red, white and blue. In fact, you can see ironically there is Tinkoff in front of us. That is the team that will become Katusha next year. They will be changing the colours. Oleg Tinkoff has put a lot of money into this particular squad and brought a lot of young Russian riders along, and Belarusians as well. Vasil Kirienko, we've seen, he's a fantastically talented rider. Kirienko on and off the track, on the road and on the track. We've seen Mikhail Ignatiev, the former scratch race champion from the points race champion from the Olympics in Athens. Ivan Rovny, who I think is actually very underrated. I think he's the best of the lot, actually, Ivan Rovny, but we shall see. 9 minutes 16 seconds is the gap between Manuel Ortega and the rest of the peloton. At the moment it's still okay for Ortega, but that will just disappear like a wisp of smoke as soon as everybody starts chasing him down.
Certainly, where we can see there the average at the speed he's travelling at 24 out front, and the bunch is travelling at 40, and they're not really going for it in the bunch at this moment. Certainly not full out, although there is a team or a number of riders in the front pulling along a bit faster than it was some time ago, but certainly it's going to be just a matter of time now how much more air time he can have out front.
Yeah, I think it's all about that, all about air time. Eshkov is the man doing the work with the bottles, and very much needed today, Sean, because it's nearly 40 degrees out here. Even if you're rolling along at a very moderate pace as they are, it's really going to be a case of taking on as much liquid as you can at regular intervals, not shoving it down your throat, but just taking on regularly.
Yes, well, of course, all experienced, or you should be very experienced, the riders, and to take on the liquids all the time, little very often is the word, I suppose, and it's something they will be very familiar with over the years coming up through the professional and the amateur ranks, but it's certainly a wearing down process in this race, and the warmer conditions in the first days, it takes effect maybe not today or tomorrow, but into the second week, the third week of racing. That's when you pay for the very, very warm conditions which they're having today.
Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr for your questions and comments. Pat from Cork in Ireland congratulates you for the Sean Kelly Tour in Waterford, by the way, so it's a fantastic day. And saying, why have CSC put a fairly weakened team in? No Cancellara, no Vogt, no Schlecks. I think it goes back to what we were talking about just when Sean was round the back wielding a spanner and a screwdriver getting the pictures up. It's not really a case of a weakened team, it's a case of who targets what. People like Cancellara, for example, and the Schlecks are targeting the World Championships now. They've already ridden the Tour de France. It's not a weakened team, Sean, it's just a different team.
Well, I suppose you could call it a weaker team. Certainly not the solidness of the Tour of France, but you cannot put the riders into the Tour of France and then get them to go on to the Tour of Spain, and also some of them in the Giro as well. So there's a programme worked out at the beginning of the year for the riders, changed a little bit depending on what happens if riders get sick, accident, and you cannot make the earlier part of your programme the first 2 months, 3 months of the season. But it would be unfair to have maybe Schlecks and Cancellara, and certainly Cancellara, he's a rider who has been going since Torino Adriatico. He won that, winning in the classics and up there in all the classics, and then going on and doing the Tour of France, of course, and the races in between the classics and the Tour. And just after the Tour de France, he was just back in Zurich, I think, for a number of hours and went straight to the Olympics. So he's had a very difficult season and a very heavy programme, and it's normal that he's not here. But I certainly would not be majorly concerned about the CSE Saxo team, the strength of the team. I think if Sastra's up to it, they will be able to control the situation. It's not like the Tour of France here. It's it's a little bit, maybe a bit easier to control the race, so that would not be the concern. I think if Sastra is in the position to win the race, I think the team will be strong enough to support him all the way.
Manuel Ortega getting his encouragement from the team car. Antonio Corbello and Juan Martinez are the two director sportives for the Andalusia Carasur team. And then we are running through Andalusia today into Cordoba. What about that for a parched landscape? It can get amazingly hot out here. It's nearly 40 degrees, as Hendrik Grudon was saying, 36 degrees in his car. And if I know Hendrik, he'll have his arm out the on the door of the car, window down, enjoying the sun while he can before it all kicks off. And he has to do some work at the end of it. It's just making sure everything, keeping an eye on everything. Lots and lots of water carrying going on. You can see AG2R distributing their bidon at the moment. A little bit more news in a minute, as nothing is going on. Today we are running through, as I say, the province of Cordoba, part of Andalusia. We are going out of the province of Jaén. We've been asked to mention as many of the towns we're going through as possible. There are not many towns here to talk about, one has to say. Juan Manuel Garate, not there, that's Oscar Freire, their three-time world champion, as you can see from Rabobank. But Garate is in fact going to Rabobank, so that's interesting. Next year, we'll talk about a bit more news about the transfer window and the merry-go-round of equipment and riders in the next 10 or so minutes. But the question I asked when we came on air was, we've only done the Vuelta route between these two cities, Cordoba and Jaén, once in the history of the Vuelta a España. Remember, it's been going since 1935. And it's amazing, actually, that we've only been between these two cities in the one time. There's only one person has written in with the correct answer so far, although several of you have had a go. It was a fair while ago, and somebody saying 2005. Nope, you've got to go back a lot further than that. I can't remember who it was, actually, was saying that, let me just bring it up. Roz, I think it was, Roz Jones saying, I think it was Alessandro Patacchi back in 2005. No, that was Cordoba to Porto Leano, which is on the outskirts of Jaén. That's, well, it's between Jaén and Cordoba. In fact, they're trying to bring it into this greater Cordoba region, Porto Leano, to make it a sort of municipal grouping of towns. But no, that's not the answer. It was Priego di Cordoba to Jaén, and it was 177 kilometers, and quite a while ago now. And one man, that's Matt, has got it right so far. Oh, June Chapman has just written in, and she's got it right as well. Let's see if we can get any more, and then I'll give you the answer. So the merry-go-round continues. There's nothing much going on in the race at the moment, so let's have a chat about that. Once again, people are moving from place to place. We've mentioned that Vladimir Karpets, Bocharov, Steegmans, Pozzato, and now, of course, Robbie McEwen is going to Katusha. But more than anything else, there seems to be teams going and teams being formed, and you know, bike manufacturers moving from one place to another. Sean, it always happens this time of year, doesn't it? The speculation starts and everybody has a little bit of a rumour here, a little bit of a rumour there, and it takes a while to get them confirmed. Yes, well, it starts, I suppose, in the Tour of France. I suppose the bigger riders, if there's movement there, we hear about that in the Tour of France, and then it goes on into the Tour of Spain, and it's still going on, and the past number of days, and once again today, and for the next I suppose next 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of the teams might have 75-80% of their riders signed up, and they will be just finalising the last the last number of riders, and it's going on all the time, and of course the new teams are the ones which have a bit more of a task at hand to build a team, because building a team and getting in a lot of new riders, well then it takes a bit more time, and it's not about just going out there and saying, well, that rider will take him. You have to study it, and there's a lot of negotiation goes on with the people who are building the team. The director of sports who are going to be there, they would have a very big input in it, and
So it does take a bit of time, and of course this year, there's a lot of situations which maybe we haven't had in the last number of years with Pro Tour finishing. The teams, they're going to certainly come down in numbers, the number of riders and teams, because the number of races they're going to do next year. I think there's a lot of the teams who do not have interest in a lot of those countries where those races are not going to do as many races, and that automatically takes down the number of riders and personnel within a team. And then we have the situation, unfortunately, where there's some teams going out and not able to find a main sponsor, as we have Credit Agricole and Gerolsteiner, who are the two main ones.
Yep, Gerolsteiner finishing. Milram, on the other hand, have extended until 2010, and they're taking a bunch of the Gerolsteiner riders. They'd already said they were going to take as many people as they possibly can, but they've just announced that they're going to take Johannes Freulinger, Matthias Russ. They've signed contracts with Milram. Also a rumour to be going there, and I think I'm pretty certain it will be announced very shortly. Fabian Wegmann and the Director Sportif Christian Henn, they are probably going to sign by the end of next week, I would imagine. And then Marcus and Thomas Forthen are also being talked to by Milram to see if they want to go there as well. So that's a good parachute, really, for Gerolsteiner, and it's a great shame Gerolsteiner have gone. I mean, they've been there a long time. The big name, of course, from Gerolsteiner, or one of the big names who won't have a team this year or next year, is David Rebellin. A few rumours flying around about him, but we haven't heard anything concrete yet.
No, nothing concrete, and of course, we've talked about him. He's coming to the end of his career, but again, he wants to go on, and certainly, his performances this year have been quite good. When you look at his performance in the Olympic road race, which was a very difficult circuit there, he's still able to perform at that top level. So he's a classics winner. A possibility next year in the early part of the season, the Amstel Gold Race, Flèche Wallonne, those sort of races. He's very much capable of winning them, and for a team that is very important in the earlier part of the season. So definitely he will be picked up, but he has to get a team who are sure of riding those races, and I think that's what he's looking at the moment. He certainly has, he must have a number of offers out there, but he's taking his timing, studying the situation to get the right team is going to be important, that he gets into those races which he can shine in.
He can indeed, and of course the big names from around the peloton which still don't have a berth, things are Stefan Schumacher. We don't know where he's going next year so far. Tor Uzoft, of course, from Credit Agricole, we don't know where he's going to be going next year. We've already heard that Nicholas Roach is going to AG2R, is that correct?
AG2R, yes, and Schumacher, there's a rumour that he could be going also to Milram, as Chiolek, there was a talk of him going also.
Yeah.
But it's not being confirmed that he's going there, but certainly it would look like a very good move for Chiolek, because of course with Columbia, with Cavendish now, he knows that Cavendish proving this year he's the fastest in the world. A move to Milram would be I think a good one for him.
Well, the peloton are still rolling along the road from Jaén to Cordoba today. It's 168.8 kilometers in blistering heat, nearly 40 degrees. The Case the Pang boys sitting somewhere near the front. They've not had to do a huge amount of work yet. At the moment, the man sitting right on the front is Emanuele Bindi from the Lampre squad. He's turning a fairly light gear, rolling away. Good road surfaces. It's amazing how the Tour of Spain has improved in terms of infrastructure over the last 15-20 years, maybe 25 years is probably more like it. I mean, when you first raced the Vuelta a España, Sean, what was the infrastructure like?
Well, it was quite a lot of the time it was quite poor.
There's a wry smile there.
Yes, the roads were in pretty poor condition, and it has improved in the last 20 years, enormously. And we've talked about it, on those the roads we're on today, quite large roads. It's normal that they have improved, but in the mountains, also in the Pyrenees, it's amazing the improvement. And when we go back in the Tour of France, we drive the routes, in the big climbs in the Pyrenees. It's amazing the way the surface have improved. But all across Europe, I suppose the same in Ireland in the past 20 years. We've got magnificent roads, and it was the same situation as Spain. It's all about this, European funding that they're getting for the road construction.
Yep, European money. It's always a good thing, isn't it? That's what happened. Of course, Spain was really, well, it's a fairly difficult phrase to use, but quite reasonable as Ortega goes through the intermediate sprint point, taking a few more seconds in the process, at a few more points as well, but that's not his prime motive today. His prime motive is to stay out there as long as possible. Nice to see the massed ranks of Euskaltel in there. Hate to use such an overused phrase, actually, but it was a bit of a pariah state for a while. Spain, many years ago, certainly during the Franco regime, early years of the Franco regime after the war. Very difficult for money to come in from Western Europe to Spain, and it took a long time to catch up, and sometimes still they have a little bit of an inferiority complex about their own tour compared to other tours. They shouldn't do. They've tried very hard. In fact, it's had an effect that they've tried very hard to make it interesting over the last few years, Sean, precisely because of that. A lot of riders perhaps looking at it as the third tour, a lot of people looking at it as the third tour. The press always asking questions about it. Should we be doing it? Should we make it shorter? Is it in the right place in the year? And the organisers have responded to that by perhaps being a little bit smarted and coming up with new and fresh ideas every year.
Yes, well, of course, since they got the change of date for the Tour of Spain from the earlier part of the season, the first years, they have been looking at that and how can they change. And I think one of the things they did certainly was the distance of the stages. They try and shorten them to make the race, more active racing, more active stages, and it has worked to a certain extent. But when you get stages like we've got today, a very, a long enough stage. Of course, not the longest one of the race by any, but almost 170 kilometres on these sort of roads. A team that's controlling the race are going to allow a rider or two or three riders to get out in front and pull out a nice advantage and just leave them cook out there, as they say in cycling terms, and pull them back in the end. And that's, you can never overcome that, because no matter what sort of strategy you put together as an organiser, the teams will work to their benefit. What is the easiest way to control the race? And you're always going to be up against that problem, and when you have that sort of terrain as we have today, it's very familiar. Opening number of days, opening stages of the Tour of Spain.
Yes, indeed, they are just rolling along at the moment. That's the main way of it. A lot of jerseys now being undone against the heat. Nearly 40 degrees. Mete Jirko, we're just seeing in our shot as we go through. Good road service here today. And coming into something slightly greener out of the plains, parched, barren plains between Jaén and Cordoba. Not exactly plains either, really, are they? They're sort of rolling hills. Right, we talked about riders and rumours of going from place to place. Just while I remember, Staf Schierlinks not finishing the stage yesterday, going home for medical reasons, and very quick to point out in the papers was Eric Boyer that there's nothing to do with blood parameters or anything like that. He's just has a medical problem that needs to be dealt with. So Staf Schierlinks, the Belgian from Cofidis, not taking part in stage 3, pulling out during stage 2. The merry-go-round doesn't involve riders, though, does it, Sean? We know now, confirmed, that we knew already that Cervelo were leaving CSC. Their partnership's gone back a long way, and they're starting their own development team. All sorts of rumours about that, and we hope to bring you some news on that. So keep tuned over the next 3 or 4 days, because we should have some interesting news on that. But Saxo Bank, which is the new main sponsor of the CSC team, they're going to be riding Specialized next year, and that's a formal announcement.
Yes, that certainly is, and of course, as you say, Cervelo has been with Rees for quite a number of years, and they've certainly got a lot of exposure out of it, because with the team, they Rees developing the team starting out, and then the team getting stronger and really developing into the top team in the world, and we see certainly that this year in the Tour of France, and Cervelo were on that trip with him and with the team, so they have certainly got very good exposure, but they seem to be parting ways, and Specialized moving to take over, which is going to be the Saxo Bank and Rees's team for next year.
I've read somewhere that Specialized are going to be the mounts of over 100 riders in the professional peloton from next year. When you think about how many teams that they are sponsoring, they're continuing with Quick Step, they're going to start with the Saxo Bank squad, and they've got other riders as well, other teams at different levels. Over 100 riders, professional riders in the top 2 ranks. We're going to be riding Specialized bikes. That's an incredible amount, really. But other teams swapping around. Giant, they're going to Rabobank. That's a bit surprising. They've been with Colnago for such a long time. Do you think the economics of the bike trade are really beginning to change the face of who's riding what?
Well, I think the big problem is for the bike manufacturers. You have to look at the very big brands who produce, a huge range of bikes. As you say, Specialized one, Trek, all of those ones. Scott, they have bikes for everybody, from the smallest kid to the the very top standard bike, racing bike, take it, in all sorts of events, and that's a difficult one, like Colnago, for example, Cervelo, who maybe only produce more of the top end of bikes, competition bikes, and we hear about the budgets which cost to get into a professional team, the top professional team, not alone supplying the bikes, but also they have to pay a contract to get in there, and we've heard in the Tour of France and over the past number of years, the price of that has grown astronomically, and it's understandable why the ones who have the huge range, I suppose, they have the financial power.
It's very interesting for next year, because as the Pro Tour is finishing, I wonder what the sort of contract amounts are for next year for the bike companies. I wouldn't be surprised, it's a personal opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if the budgets haven't come down a little bit for some riders. There's no Pro Tour next year, and the riders there's less riders and so on. I really don't know, but other bike manufacturers on the move. Scott, of course, they've already said they're withdrawing their sponsorship, along with they're actually the co-sponsors with American Beef of what was the Sonia Deval squad this year. They are not here in the Vuelta a España, by the way, because that team, its invitation, as it would have been Sonia Deval, was withdrawn by the organisers following Ricardo Rico's positive test for Serra in that third generation EPO drug. And just the riders here just wanting to take the extra points in the sprint and the extra seconds, trying to sew things up on Liquid Gas, keeping things under control for Pozzato. Was Pozzato in that group? Very difficult to tell. He could have taken a few more seconds away. But there's Daniele Bernati. And the Bernati doing a job for Liquid Gas. And I agree with Hendrik Redon. He's on very, very good form. He looked very strong yesterday, and he looked good in the Eneco Tour as well. Just going back to the bikes then. Scott, not going to be with American Beef next year. They are moving over to Colombia. So Giant going to Rabobank, they're going to Colombia. It really is a proper old merry-go-round at the moment.
Yes, it certainly is. It's a lot of change, and I suppose the one that Colnago with Rabobank, which has been there for many years, and it's certainly a surprise to me to see the change there, but it's certainly happening, and Colnago, of course, been with. If you look back some years ago, Colnago was with quite a number of teams, and now it's certainly getting smaller each year. If you look at this year, how many teams Colnago were supplying compared to 15 years ago, it's a tiny number, and I think it's certainly a change of times, and the American bike suppliers, of course, have come in the last 10 or 15 years very strongly.
Yeah, they have indeed. Well, just taking a bit of a shorter route round one side of the traffic island, then another. Remember, Ortega taking the top points with Daniele Bernati going through on that second intermediate sprint to take second spot. A little bit of just squeezing through the gap. Here's our man from Crédit Agricole there. That's the sprint back on Kermesse style. Ortega has been out for a long time today, for pretty much the whole of the day. The first hour of racing, he shot off at about 40-odd kilometers an hour. 93rd on general classification, 48 seconds down. Just shows how close they are at the moment. We'll bring you confirmation of the intermediate sprint point. They've still got the Alto de San Jerónimo to go over. The third category climb comes after 142 kilometers, the summit, and then the run down into Cordoba. The other more news just after a short break. Seven minutes and 45 seconds is the gap now between the peloton, at least it was at the last intermediate checkpoint, and the man up ahead, Manuel Ortega of the Andalusia squad. The main peloton just gradually closing in on the man from Andalusia, Carcer. One more bit of transfer news in terms of bikes is that Ridley, as well as Robbie McEwen, leaving Lotto. Ridley are leaving as well, and they are going to Katusha. That's a good move for them. They've had a tremendous amount of exposure from Silence Lotto and Lotto in its various forms, shown over the many years. They took over from, I think, Lightspeed with the previous suppliers of bikes there, and it's grown their brand immeasurably. But going to Katusha will expand their brand outside of Northern Europe, which is really their home market.
Yes, it certainly will, and of course, you know, they have had success with Lotto, and of course with Robbie McEwen, and I think that is the contact there with Robbie going to Katusha. He, you know, goes along with that brand. I'd say he has a very good contact there. I would reckon that is the reason.
Here we are then on the third category, San Jerónimo. It's now this man still by himself, plugging away. It's a long, old, hard day, a bit lonely out there and a bit hot.
It certainly is. It's a long, difficult day out there on your own. You know, it just the energy, the heat, it gets sapped away, and we can see he's, you know, suffering, and he's been suffering for quite a while here. And it's, you know, it's a difficult one. What do you do in a race like this? Do you go out there on your own? You know it's going to be majorly difficult to stay out. The chances, you know, are almost nil when you set off out there. But you get a lot of exposure. But your rider is going to pay in the next number of days, and you know you need a rider that can recover very quickly, because in the the following days, if he doesn't recover, you could lose a rider very quickly.
Yeah.
And you know, you have to start, you know, doing the balancing act. Is it worth that? You know, risking him, send him out there for such a long time if you're going to lose him the next number of days. So and it's you know, a lot of the time we see in the earlier part of the Tour of Spain here, it's the smaller teams who try and do it, because of course they, you know, it's an opportunity for them to get exposure here, and they know it's going to be majorly difficult when we get into the difficult terrain to get that sort of exposure, get that sort of airtime. So they certainly, you know, go about it very well and take the risk, and you know, he's done a very good job today. He's got magnificent exposure for his team.
Yeah. We are in the region of Andalusia, and it's what the sponsors will want to see. Not your turn of racing this, Sean. You never did this, did you? Out by yourself for a long time. I think you told me once you only did this once.
Yes, and it was in Spain. It was in the beginning of season. I you know, really didn't set out at the beginning of the stage, and I was just rolling out at the start in the first number of kilometres. Actually, Greg LeMond said to me, you know, I bet you'd not attack in the start and go out on a lone break. And I just went on an 80% attack, and nobody responded, and I found myself out in front for, I think, you know, 70 or 80 k's certainly. But again, I just calculated my effort, gave it, you know, 85%, and I was never allowed the advantage which I would have needed, and I was, you know, taken back with 20 kilometres to go. But because I had calculated well, I was able to stay in the bunch right to the finish, and that's something as well that you have to be able to do when you're out there. And we see it many times in the Tour of France this year, when you have a group of 3 or 4 riders, 50 k's to go, they have only 2.5 minutes, and suddenly when they get to the 30 k's, we see them up in their game and they can start going very, very fast, and that is a calculation that they have been working to and holding off. Sometimes in the Tour of France we've seen this year they held off right to the finish and just contested the stage victory, and other ones were just gobbled up in the last number of kilometres or in the last kilometre.
Yep, Martinez had a good job yesterday. He was out for a long time, then went on the attack and still managed to finish up fairly early. And that's about calculating your effort and making sure you can be there. I'm not quite sure that Manuel Ortega is going to be there in the end. Some of the guys from the break yesterday, whoop, concertina together. Some of the guys in the breakaway yesterday did finish way down outside of the top guys. I think it was Lemoine was 13 minutes down in the end on everybody else, so having been very good in the Eneco Tour, I think it took it out of him actually trying to defend against Gutierrez and getting shot out the back of the pelotons. They went past, and that was the end of that. It did go fairly hard at the end of yesterday, so it shows Igor Martinez is in pretty good shape.
Yes, I think he certainly showed that when he went in the attack, and he attacked, when it started to get difficult, when the road started, go upwards. And Lemoine, as you said, and Ignatev also was the one who was, with him at the finish, and they both of them finished 13 minutes and 13 seconds down. There were 2 last riders in on the stage yesterday, but we see that immediately when Martinez attacked. They are the ones who were in trouble, and that gave us the indication that they were starting to tire at that point, and it certainly it proved in the end.
We saw Balan finishing well up yesterday. I thought initially, because I've got to say the pictures yesterday were absolutely dire. They're much better today. They were all over the shop yesterday. They were either very, very wobbly, or they were 1.5 miles away from the ride. It's very difficult to pick people out, and our apologies if we got some wrong people. I thought the man coming up for that finish yesterday was perhaps at first when I saw him was Damiano Cunego, but when you get a closer shot, of course, he was much, much taller and spindlier than Cunego. But we didn't see much of him yesterday. That doesn't bode very well. It would have been his sort of finish yesterday, I would have thought.
Well, certainly, it's a finish which would suit him, certainly, better than today's one. But he's not really that explosive, and certainly in the past couple of years, he hasn't been doing that as well as he was when he won the Tour of Italy, for example. But I think, it's a position for him at the moment to get into this race is going to take him a number of days. We see him going out of the Tour of France, of course, so I think he's maybe not in his best shape starting out here in these first number of days, and he's going to use it and try and get into shape. And the question is, is he going to be up there with a chance to have a go at this general classement? I feel it's going to be difficult for him once again, because we've seen so many times in the past years the big tours. I am doubtful if he can pull off another one since his magnificent victory in the Tour of Italy quite a number of years ago.
I've got to say I agree with you, actually, Sean. She's never shown anything like the form that he showed on that particular year. Maybe it was a particularly special year, but he's never really shown that sort of power again. Doesn't mean to say he can't have good victories, as we showed in the Tour of Lombardy last year. He's got exceptional ability on certain terrain, and he can be a little bit of a explosive, punchy climber given the right conditions and in top form.
Certainly, and I think at the end of a very difficult race, he is one of the ones who is a bit more punchier than the really good climbers, for example. The Tour of Lombardy is a race, and also the Classic, the Ardennes Classic in the beginning of the year, of course, is the ones which he can come out and do very good performances. This race, he's certainly going to try and use it and get in shape for the World Championships, and then he's definitely in with a chance of getting on the Italian team selection for the World Championships, and that is a circuit which would suit him very well if he can get into good shape in this Tour of Spain, come out with it well. The World Championships is so important for him, and certainly more so this year with it being in Italy.
Yeah, indeed, it's going to suit him pretty well, actually. It's quite a difficult old course in Varese. We're covering it live, of course, here on Eurosport. You can see Tom Bowden sitting third back in line here at the moment. And Alberto Contador, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the left, if you're looking at them from the front. In his Astana kit, looking in very good shape, not really worrying about anything at the moment. Some riders beginning to suffer on this even third category climb, the heat taking it out of them. Some of the stronger sprinters, Benati, Bonin, Ferreira, the guys who can sprint and climb, will be the ones who can get over the top of this and look forward to something else. That's Nikolai Trusov, the rider from Tinkoff, just going backwards at the moment. Some people really beginning to feel the heat today. And there is Bettini just trying his legs. We see this so often in a little climb like this. Tell you what, he says, I'm going to start to give it a dig. Looking over his shoulder, he hasn't had the best of years wearing the rainbow bands, but even so, not too bad at the moment. And a number of riders being able to go with him. There is Kunigo, I think. And it looks like his little hunch style, looking over the shoulder to see where everybody is. We were talking about rumour mills, by the way. The rumour mill confirmed that Johnny Bellis will be going to Saxo Bank next year. Good on you, Johnny. I'm glad they've signed you. God, that's a big dig. That has strung him out, Sean. He loves doing this, Paolo Bettini.
Yes, well, of course, he wants to make this one difficult, and it's a finish that if he can, pull the bunch out and try and get some of the bigger sprinters maybe to lose contact, a situation where he could take a stage victory. But he's here, I suppose, to really prepare for the World Championships. And as you said, he's had difficulty this year getting into form. The beginning of season, not going his way, a few crashes in the earlier part of the season, and certainly struggling more than he has in other years, in past years. But again, this race he could come out with very well in the World Championships. I'd not be surprised if we see him getting his top form for the World Championships. Although the circuit this year, I'm a little bit afraid that it might be a bit too difficult for him.
Yeah, maybe. He's such a great rider, though. Such a charismatic rider, Paolo Bettini. Spent some years in the shadow of Michele Bartoli when he first started, and they were great mates for a while, and then they all fell out. Bettini has gone on to have his own fabulous career, but Bartoli was a great rider, but he's not really matched the career that Bettini managed to develop after that. Right, looking over his shoulder, seeing if anybody's going to come with him. He's just going to keep plugging on. It's certainly hot out there. If Paolo Bettini is feeling the heat, it is hot. Just about 5 minutes of an advantage for Manuel Ortega over Paolo Bettini, and then back a few seconds to the peloton as it stands. 168.6 kilometers today, running from Jaén into Cordoba today. This great Moorish centre, which is not a shadow of its former self, but certainly nowhere near as big as it was in the late Middle Ages, when it was one of the biggest cities, if not the biggest city in Western Europe. Well, as Paolo gives it a good old push at the moment, looking over his shoulder, nobody willing to go with him. How long are they going to let him just stay away? Because he seems to have thought, well, I wonder if anybody's going to come with me, and now nobody has. He's decided to be a little bit more concerted with this push.
Yes, I think he was hoping that there would a lot of riders follow in his wheel there, and just make it difficult. But the surprising thing, if he's preparing this one, to get it down to maybe a smaller group or eliminate the sprinters, as I say, for this finish, he has a lot of teammates there who should be really doing that. But as we see, he's just looking around a lot now, and he's in a bit of no man's land, because out here on his own to go it alone is certainly not a possibility. And I think some of the riders, they just allowed him to just ride off and did not really try and follow them, because there's certainly riders here could have stayed in his wheel, but allow him just to ride away. And then I think he realises now that it's not the best tactic, the way it's working out at the moment.
Well, there's Tomica to think of in the quick step squad. I think they would like him to. There he is, actually, in the middle of your shot. He would like to be there at the finish today, and he's got Daniele Benati to contend with. It's not the most shallow of third category climbs, this Alto de San Jeronimo, but even so, Paolo Bettini having a good go. That is one of my favourite riders, Alexander Kolovnev. I tell you what, you stand next to him, he is lean, man. He was really cut, always in great shape winner of the inaugural professional race at the Eroica over the Strada Bianchi, and Kolobnev and Bettini now together. Now, why Kolobnev has gone across to him is slightly a mystery. Sitting on his wheel now. Igor Martinez, we saw sitting at the front of this little group here just now in the white combination jersey. He's the best placed man on all the competitions at the moment, about 6 or 7 back. He's the white jersey with the orange square in the middle. Matt Lloyd up there as well. He's a man we didn't get time to mention with Henrik Verdon, but if he's coming into form, Sean, he could do really, really well, Matt Lloyd. He's a much underrated climber.
Yes, certainly he's a good climber, but in a 3-week tour, that is the question. You know, we've talked about the climbers who can climb well in a week-long race, but when you get into the 3rd week, we have seen so many of them, you know, having problems. And it's all about, you know, recovery. A race 3 weeks long, it's really the big guns that shine in the last week of the race. But certainly, you know, he's a one who could do a performance. If he really gets top shape, a top 10 place is possible.
Top 10 would be nice for him. Bettini looking at Kolobnev to see what sort of gap they've got and what sort of help he's going to get from the Russian. Terrific rider, Kolobnev. What's your impressions of Kolobnev? I know I go on about him being he's always in top shape, and I like him as a rider. He's aggressive. I think he's getting a little bit more tactically aware. But what's your opinion of him?
Well, I think he's, you know, a very talented rider. This year I was expecting a bit more from him, more consistency, I suppose, you know, during the season. Last year we see him in Paris-Nice. He did a very good performance, won a stage and held the bunch off in the final number of kilometres magnificently, and, you know, was certainly I was impressed with that performance, and I thought we would see more of him during the season, but then he went away and not really any great performances after that. In the World Championships, of course, he sprung up once again and did a magnificent performance. So he's certainly, you know, able to throw in performances, but consistency, I think that's something he's lacking at the moment, and experience is probably part of that. And, you know, the surprising thing is here he's going off with Bettini. You know, what's the reason for that? Maybe he thinks that Bettini is doing some special training preparation for the World Championships, and he wants to get on the same boat.
Maybe he does, yeah. Well, maybe not, as the case may be. Is now he's got a good 50 bike lengths between the two of them. Bettini giving another little kick, and the rest of the peloton are not very far behind Alexander Kolobnev now. There he is, 25th in the general classification, Kolobnev. Yeah, that was a great win in Paris-Nice. That's the one where Tom Bonan threw his arms up in the air saying, "I've won," and forgot that Kolobnev was still out ahead and didn't get it. Unfortunately, this man, Manuel Ortega, has done a great ride today, Sean. He's done exactly what his team would have expected of him. He spent a long time out, and actually he's got up and over the top of this 3rd category climb, still with a fairly decent advantage.
Yes, well, certainly he's hanging in there well, and it looked a long time back the road that he was, you know, suffering big time, but he's defending quite well here, and you know, he's rolling a gear much bigger than Bettini, for example. You know, you can see him there, he's pedaling. It looks like you know, a slow motion pedaling rhythm, and that's, you know, it gives a false impression. You know, you say to yourself, well, he's starting to struggle big time, and often is not the case. It's just that their style of riding, that they use a bigger gear on the climbs, and but still, you know, he could have quite a lot of energy, and he's still hanging in there. But certainly, you know, it's also, I think, the bunches allow him to hang out there. They know there's quite a number of kilometres to go, and we can see the case the Pang riders just rolling on the front, not getting concerned about Bettini going out there. Just leave him hanging out there also, and there will be teams, you know, they're aware that the teams will take it up after the climb, the sprinters team, so they're also, you know, banking on that, and that's what it's about as well. You know, you do not use your riders too much in the earlier part of the race, even if you've got the jersey, because Case de Pang, I think, you know, they might have interests further on the road. If Valverde rides well later on this tour, well, they certainly will need the manpower, and you just conserve the jersey with, you know, the least amount of work possible in these early days.
Beginning to suffer on the back at the moment is Tomas Vaitkus, the Lithuanian champion, in his national jersey there for Astana. just rolling. I think the heat playing a significant part in today's series of events. Nearly 40 degrees in temperature here for some of these riders, having a real problem, and some liquids going over the heads of some guys. Well, I'm sure a lot of you are watching around Europe and it's not 40 degrees. Be interested to know on eurosportcycling@hotmail.fr where you are, what you're watching on, and what the weather's like outside. It's nice here on the Tour of Spain. And another kick coming out of the front of the peloton. That looks like the Mountains jersey, actually. Difficult to tell from this height. But certainly a few kicks coming out from the front as they go over the top of this third category, Alto de San Jerónimo, with about 26 kilometers to go on the far side of it. When you get a good look at Paolo Bettini, by the way, have a look at his helmet. It's a special edition laser helmet, World Championship laser helmet. It's absolutely lovely. Little crests on the sides. They cost an absolute fortune, though. But interesting to see. In any case, I think it is the Mountains classification jersey of Redondo from Andalusia, who's gone on the attack here to get a few more extra points. Bettini, 17th in the overall classification, 23 seconds down on Alejandro Valverde. The jerseys today: the gold leaders jersey on the shoulders of Valverde, and then the blue points jersey, Rebellin. Mountains jersey, Redondo of Andalusia Carasur. The combined jersey on the shoulders of Euskaltel Euskadi's Igor Martinez. Somebody asking the question on eurosportcycling@hotmail.fr: who are Euskaltel Euskadi? It's the telecommunications company that are based in and serve the Basque region. Euskadi is the Basque region. It's the Basque word for the Basque region, and Euskaltel are the telecommunications company from that area. They have supported cycling for a long time now. Just under 30 kilometers to go. Time for the answer to the question. We posed the question earlier on that we've only done this route from Jaén to Cordoba once in the entire history of the Vuelta a España. In fact, it was the other way around. Rather than Jaén to Cordoba, it was the other way around, Cordoba to Jaén, and it was. Thanks to those answers, the people who got it right: Matt Blythe, Gene Chapman and John Richards. Although you had to correct yourself very quickly, John. Well done. 1976. Stage 3 from Priego de Cordoba to Jaén, 177 kilometers. Theo Schmidt of the Netherlands was the winner. Theo Schmidt, a good rider?
Yes, well, he was a good sprinter, and you know, a classics rider. He was that style of rider. So certainly, you know, he won quite a lot of stages, and you know, quite a number of races. But would not be certainly a man for the big mountains. He was more of a flat rider. Belgium, Holland would be his real style of racing.
He took a victory here then in 1976 in the Vuelta a España. So good on him. There is the leader in the Mountains classification right on your screen there. It is Jesus Redondo, and he's got just ahead of him Sebastian Joly, who we haven't seen for a while. Actually, Joly had a very nasty accident a couple of years ago, and we've not seen him for a while. Very talented rider, Joly, but not seen too much of him. So now there are two men from Andalusia Carasur at the head of the race. This man, Manuel Ortega, still got a healthy gap at the moment, but is beginning to suffer. And these two here, Joly and Redondo, the chap with the Mountains classification jersey on, the pink, dark pink, red jersey, trying to take those extra points. He's going to go ahead of Joly, leading this classification, and exactly what he should be doing. They changed the jerseys, incidentally, this year. Once again, the colours are different to they have been in the past. You may remember the points jersey a few years ago was bright blue with a yellow fish on it. Now it's changed again. General classification jersey, gold. The Mountains jersey, you can see on your shot there, just sort of reddy pink. The points jersey is dark blue. And the combined jersey is a sort of silver-white colour. And the wearers of those jerseys at the moment are Jesus Rezendo, the man you can see in your shot. Mountains classification, Iwan Martinez of Euskaltel Telescadi wearing the combined jersey, David Rebellin in the blue points jersey, and Alejandro Valverde in the gold leaders jersey. Could well change again today, the gold leaders jersey, you never know. Remember, there are bonus seconds available at the end of the stage. 20 seconds for a win, 12 for second, 8 for third. Paolo Bettini launched a bit of a speculative dig on the way up over this mountain. Nobody came with him until Alexander Kolobnev decided to have a go. And he's dropped back a little as well. And Bettini pressing on now. A very opportunistic rider, does pretty well as Manuel Ortega is beginning to pedal squares now. Having real trouble out in the heat here. The lead we were just talking about, Sean, could change today, couldn't it? Especially with 25 or 20 seconds, 12 seconds and 8 seconds on offer, because separating the first 50 riders is less than 30 seconds.
Yes, well, certainly, and of course the ones up in the top of the classement, Benalti, we see him contesting the intermediate sprints, and the reason he's doing that is for the time bonifications, which are still there available, second and third in those sprints. And you know, he's in the general classement, he's only 13 seconds down in third position, and he's, you know, certainly with a very good chance of taking over the race leader jersey today if he can do a very good sprint, get up on the in that final sprint to the line. And you know, the stage victory is for the taking, and also, you know, the an extra bonus, maybe get into the race leader jersey for a number of days.
Scorchingly hot here today, and it's beginning to pay. This here is Manuel Ortega. Been out for a long time. He attacked as soon as the race went off today, so the best part 140 kilometers now by himself in this heat. Plenty of support from the car, but even so, you have a lot of time to think about things and a lot of time to go through 7 hells in this sort of heat, and he's beginning to suffer, just rallying himself a little bit at the moment. But when the gradient gets a little bit steeper, he looks like he's pedaling squares at the moment, but very, very hot, nearly 40 degrees out here today on the run to Cordoba. Jan in the Isle of Wight says it's lovely and sunny here. And Amy from Mullingar in County Westmeath says, I'm watching on the patio with extra long earphones, which is very nice.
That's a surprise.
What, that
it's not raining.
That it's sunny. oh, ye of little faith. Mind you, should know, shouldn't you, I guess. What's it like? Nice round there? I've never been there.
Yes, well, it's certainly, you know, Ireland is a nice place when you get a bit of good weather, but unfortunately this summer it has been, you know, a really poor summer, and certainly, you know, the month of August has not been great at all. We've had an enormous amount of rain, and it's often the case, you know, July, August can be you know, very bad weather conditions, and then September we get a very good September, and it seems to be the case once again this year.
A little bit more action coming out of the peloton. Sébastien Joly and our mountains leader Rezendo just being taken back. Liquigas now coming towards the front. Over the top then goes this man in the lead, Manuel Ortega. It'll be interesting to see what the gap. Keep an eye on that left-hand corner. The little yellow box ticking away gives the seconds gap between this man and the peloton. Third category, Alto C de San Jerónimo. He takes the points over the top. 6 for him. He's now equal with his teammate, Jose Rezendo. And Rezendo would very much like to take somewhere within the top 4 places, just to hang on to that jersey. There are 6, 4, 2 and 1 points available as they go over the top it. Bettini still out by himself, should take the 4. We haven't seen Kolobnev go back. Do you think he's been taken back, Sean?
Yes, I think he's back in the main bunch. I I think he had a change of mind when he got out
Yeah.
in front with Bettine. He said, well, really, what am I doing here? It's possible his director of sport also had a call, had a chat to him through his radio, and said, there's no point in persisting out there and just leave yourself, come back into the main bunch. There's a lot of other days and there'll be a lot more better opportunities. We see our leader here, Ortega, go through 26 kilometres ago at the summit of this climb, but unfortunately for him, it goes up and down for quite a number of kilometres, certainly 7 or 8 kilometres more where it does not go downhill, and that's going to be the really difficult one for him, because if he comes over here with a 3-4 minute advantage over Bettini, it's still a very, very difficult one until it starts going down in the last maybe 10 kilometres to the finish.
Peter Jacobs is the man trying to chase on the back hip. Roy Sentience hanging from the back. I tell you, Martin Chilingi as well, just dropping off the back. The big Dutchman from the Ceylon Slotto squad. We saw him in a couple of breaks in the Eneco Tour. Been slightly disappointed with him actually since he's moved from Skill Shimano. Hasn't done anything like the high-profile rides he did at Skill Shimano once he's gone to Ceylon Slotto. But there we go. Here's the gap: 1:45 from Ortega to Bettini. Well, he's going to get caught by Bettini. Igor Martinez and Rosendo charging up here. Rosendo wants to get ahead of him and take the points over the top, and does he? He does. He takes 2 points ahead of Martinez. So it will be Rosendo who takes the jersey on for a second day. It's pretty hot out there. They're suffering, aren't they?
Yes, certainly, and we can see, on the rear of the bunch, riders are suffering majorly. Here we can see a lot of riders lost contact with the main bunch, and it's certainly not going at full bore, and I think it's a combination of the heat there, and maybe riders also tired, a long season, and some of those riders coming into this race already tired, and we can see that they're just losing contact, and on this sort of climb it wouldn't be a normal thing to see them doing that.
So Rosendo eases up, goes back in the peloton. So Ortega, Bettini, Rosendo and Martinez. That's the order of the 4 over the top of our third category climb today. Back live with stage 3 of the Vuelta Stage. Looking down on the punchy little form of the world champion, Paolo Bettini. Not long now until he goes to Varese to defend that jersey, and amazingly, having said how to make a big song and dance, Sean, about the fact that he wanted to retire at the end of the year, he's decided that he wants to carry on.
Yes, it's quite a turnabout, because at the beginning of the year he was saying, certainly this is my last season, I'm going to finish at the end of it, and the past number of weeks he's been talking and looking for a sponsor, and he hasn't signed yet, and I'm not sure if Patrick Lefevre from the Quick Step is keen on signing him, or maybe it's possible that his contract maybe is a bit too expensive for him.
Hey, I need a wheel, quickly, stop. And having to wait for the car to arrive. Not a good thing. Is that Arroyo? Now on the attack.
Moreno.
Oh, Moreno is Moncuti. I tell you what, he had a go yesterday in a similar situation to this, Sean, in this sort of out towards the top of a climb like this. He's got the bit between teeth. He wants a stage victory.
Yes, well, I think he's certainly, trying for a victory, and in the Tour of France also he was trying, extremely hard. And I remember in the Tour of France with the Cofidis and Eric Boyer, he was saying that next year he wasn't sure if he was going to keep him in the team because his performances weren't as good as in the past years, and it was really putting the pressure on him. And I think after that we see him going in the attacking the Tour, and certainly here once again to try and get a victory, would help that to get a sponsor, get a contract for next year.
Yeah, I found Antonio Fletcher having a go now as well. He will soon be having a handy gap over the rest of the peloton if they don't start working. That is Moncuti up ahead, I would think. There he is, and he's gone. Fletcher knows he's a good rider. That's a formidable pairing, actually, if they get together. if the peloton don't react. But I got a feeling they will do, because today I think the big sprinters teams will want to shut it down. It's a good run in for Benati or Bonin. And some of the other riders as well, and Freire of course, but they're sending out the double whammy. Maybe Freire doesn't fancy it, maybe they're just going to hedge their bets, but at the moment it's Juan Antonio Fletcher going off after David Moncuti, who I tell you what was turning a fairly big gear, Sean, and looking fairly comfortable, I thought.
Yes, well, of course, Moncuti, we always see him, he rolls quite a big gear, and you know, it looks like that he's not moving quickly at all, but that's also, you know, the reason he, you know, climbs with quite a higher gear than a lot of the other riders, but certainly, you know, he does the job, and you know, can get uphill very, very fast. But you know, the question is, you know, with Fletcher here going out, you have to, you know, look about and see who's in the bunch, and if there's a number of the sprinters still in there, well, the teams are going to take it on as we get over this, you know, this final number of kick-ups before we start the downhill to the finish. And Fletcher, I think, you know, we see him a lot of time. He's tactic within the race. Sometimes maybe not the best time to attack, and you know, it's for me, it's not the first time he goes in the attack when he should be maybe waiting for a better opportunity.
Not very far back between Manuel Ortega, who is being urged on by his director sportive from the car, and Paolo Bettini now, who's taken out great chunks of time from him. And how far back then to Moncuti and Fletcher? Let's just see physically what the difference is. Still going back a fair amount of time still then. And here comes the Frenchman, still rolling that bigger gear. Across to him goes Juan Antonio Fletcher. Anybody else coming out of the peloton at the moment? Well, they're lined out. Now they're going to bring this one back if they can. And Case Tepang and Liquigas on the front. Unsurprisingly, Liquigas are there. Valverde lying about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 back in the gold leader's jersey. 105 now only the gap between Ortega and Bettini. Never ceases to amaze me, Sean, that he had a gap of, when we came on air, he had a gap of nearly 13 minutes, and now look at it.
Yes, well, of course, you know, this terrain today, being out there, it's a combination of out there for a long time, and this difficult running today, it's you know, certainly going to it's going to pay. He's going to pay the price, and the warm conditions also certainly not helping, and you know, he's really suffering at the moment.
Isn't
and the time is just, you know, melted down rapidly in the last 20k.
Of course, the question now is, how many minutes is he going to trail in behind everybody else? That is the big question, because he is definitely he's almost at a grinding halt when it comes to a really high, a really steep bit. Although he's still pushing up in the big ring. But even so, it's not looking that good at the moment for Ortega. Beginning to really suffer in this heat. Alan in Bristol in the UK says, it's raining here. It's cold and wet and windy, so I've decided to watch British Eurosport instead of working, or whilst working even. And then goes out to qualify that by saying, it's the benefits of being self-employed. I know the feeling. Oh dear. Fletcher brought back. And still Moncuti out ahead. Case Tepang doing a good job, although they won't particularly relish this prospect. As you said, Sean, it's not the easiest to run, ends up and down, up and down. And now, once again, another attack. Is that Landalusa? It looks like Landalusa to me. With Rebellin just behind him, and straight onto the wheel of Rebellin. That looked like Valverde, who's just nipped straight out and knows that Rebellin is a big danger. Rebellin wearing the points jersey. We were talking about him earlier. No team for next year so far, and he's got the leader, Alejandro Valverde, right on his wheel. Didn't hang about then, Valverde, did he?
No, certainly not, and I think you know, he's been about in that position in the wheel of Rebellin, and I suppose if somebody goes in the attack, Rebellin follows, and you're in the wheel, you just follow automatically. I don't think, you know, he's something he would be marking Rebellin at this moment. It's just a matter he was in the wheel.
Bettini passes Manuel Ortega then. So the man who's been out all day by himself has seen the world champion go past him, and now he's struggling to stay on the wheel, even though they're going into a little bit of a descent. 20 kilometers to go. Bettini is there. Ortega can say, well, I've got to hang on as long as I possibly can. Rebellin has followed Iñigo Landaluce's wheel, and Alejandro Valverde has tacked straight onto the back. I hope you're enjoying this stage 3 here on the Vuelta España. Mike Blackmore, you're back watching it. Enjoyed the Salford Nocturne at the weekend as they go onto the 20 kilometre to go banner with Moncuti has been caught by Landaluce and the other two as well now, and the rest of the peloton back up with them. Glad you enjoyed the Salford Nocturne. You've said the weather today in the UK has been pretty bad. You've been over Saddleworth Moor this morning, 13 degrees and blowing a gale. A bit different here. It's on the descent then, with Moncuti at the front, Landaluce just behind. And then Rebellin shaping up to be a little bit like yesterday at the moment, Sean. I don't think it's quite got that kick. There's not as many riders from as many different teams at the moment. So real big guns up at the front here, though. I think that's Chavanel just moving up towards the front from Cofidis. They've got a little bit of a gap on the peloton, but some of the big names in that front group of about 10 or 12 riders, and at the moment everybody else chasing to stay back on. And there is, it's Chavanel. Away he goes again. We've seen this a number of times this year. We saw him moving up through the peloton, then you saw him just flit through the shot. He's gone straight to the front and straight off. Another what is becoming another trademark Chavanel move.
Yes, and it's, you know, certainly it's a good time to move, because now we're starting more of the downhill section, and if you're really powerful, really strong, you can, you know, do a lot of damage here. But still, it's going to be a big call, because I think there's a lot of riders in here, a lot of teams in here who will take it up. You know, we must remember just that they're coming over the main climb, but I think when they get organised a bit, it will be, you know, difficult for anybody to hold out there and go on and take the victory alone.
So this is Bettini. He's now at the head of the race. Where is Ortega? That is the question. He tried desperately to hang on to the wheel of Bettini, but was having real trouble even at... well, there he is. Chucks his bid on at the side of the road. It bounces straight off the wall and back into the road. What's the fuss going on here? Poor old Ortega looks to be really suffering by himself now, and Chavanel moves smoothly up onto his wheel and will go straight past him as well. Lots of whistle blowing going on by the commissaires and the motorcycles. And Chavanel just has to get his head down and go, I think. Everybody else behind is bunched back together, and he's got a little bit of an advantage because they are not chasing him down at the moment. He's got Bettini up ahead. That could be a decent partnership with 20k to go if Chavanel can work a bit faster and get across to Bettini.
Yeah, yes, well, certainly, and it is a possibility to get across to Bettini. It's going to be, you know, a difficult one as well, because as we see there, you know, Bettini had a nice advantage over the bunch, and we're starting, I suppose, you know, the more the downhill section of it now. But we see where Chavanel, you know, joined up with the man who was out front all day, Ortega, majorly difficult part of you know, part of the road. It kicks up quite a lot, and we see Chavanel really up. Pushing and getting into a bit of a panic here.
Yeah, he did. Foot out. Do a little bit of rebalancing on the bike, and well, he keeps looking behind him. What's the score here? He's trying to get with Ortega. Come on, he's good. Wants a drink or food or something. That's what he was trying to call the car up for. I think he was trying to get a drink off of Ortega's car.
Yes, I think that was, yes. You see Ortega getting a drink, and when you're, you know, totally out of liquids, and you see the rider up in front getting one, well, you know, you try and get one from the team car.
He doesn't look particularly comfortable actually at the moment, descending here. He's not a bad descender normally, but he certainly doesn't look very comfortable. Maybe he is dehydrated, maybe he is tired, maybe he's on the ragged edge. Ortega, funnily enough, on the other hand, looks to be more comfortable heading downhill. Bettini is the man in the lead at the moment, with behind him Sylvain Chavanel and Manuel Ortega, who has been out all day. Bettini only has 26 seconds advantage over Chavanel and Ortega, but he went easily away from Ortega. Maybe Ortega's had a little bit of time to regroup his energies at the moment. There's a bit, well, there was a little bit more shade, not quite as scorchingly hot. And thanks to Charles for saying you're watching us in your house in Andalucía, and saying this is quite normal. Here is Ortega and Chavanel, and they haven't made it away. Sylvain looking over his shoulder, and they're all lined out, Sean. There'll be a lot of tired legs. Even this is only day 3 of the Vuelta a España, and still there'll be a lot of people down the back there who are really suffering in this sort of heat.
It certainly are, and a lot of people out the rear of the back of the main bunch here, and it's certainly, you know, a difficult day, and it's a day I think, you know, they will rather suffer as we go further into the race. We see now we've come onto the big main road here, and this is going to be, you know, an impossible task for Bettini.
Yeah.
If it had been downhill and, you know, narrower roads, it's advantage to a rider or a small group out in front, but with the big main road here, very large, it's not going to be possible for Bettini to hold on out there. No,
and there's no difficulty running even between 5 kilometres in the end to advantage somebody who tries to get away, really. Big wide roads, line of a sweeping bend at 3 kilometres to the right, and then a long straight run of another kilometre, just a little jig to the left before almost a straight run in towards the end for an entire kilometre. It's going to be a big sprint today. I don't think there's any doubt of that whatsoever. Some of these guys really suffering in the heat, as you can see. Patricia in Cardiff in Wales not suffering though, sitting drinking tea and eating her husband's fruitcake, which is I think we should start that sort of thing here. Tea and fruitcake in the commentary box, a bit like test match commentary for cricket. That would be good. Bettini could do with a bit of tea and fruitcake at the moment. I think he's had enough. He knows that's the end of that. It's not going to happen for him. She's just looking over his shoulder and waiting for them to arrive. Slot back in, stay with the other guys like Valverde and Rebellin, and try and get it to the line. Got a good little sprint on him, Bettini, as we know. Still a chance for him at the moment if he hasn't spent too much energy. Jaroslav Popovic up towards the front. Nice to see him up there. There he is, slots back in right next to Alejandro Valverde, and the two of them will exchange a few words, a few pleasantries, as much as you can in this particular situation, and it's situation normal with 15 kilometres to go.
Yes, well, certainly, you know, it's a familiar situation, and it's I think the terrain has decided as well. Maybe you know, the rider out in front came back, Ortega, he came back, you know, that bit quicker, I think, because of the terrain. And Bettini realised, you know, when he turned onto the main road, he said to himself, well, you know, there's no way I'm going to hold off the main bunch here, and decided also just to allow himself to be pulled back. Interesting bone, and I haven't seen if he's still in this group. That will be, you know, the interesting one. Benati, of course, if he's here, but I reckon certainly Benati will be here. Bonin maybe a little bit more difficult for the hang in.
Benati's definitely in here with the guys pushing on from Liquigas. Having said that, though, they've got riders aplenty that they could do things with if they so wanted to. Remember Pozzato as well, who started this Vuelta a España with the first gold leaders jersey following the team time trial. I should think Pozzato has managed to stay up there quite handily. And 15 kilometres of running, it's pretty much all downhill now until we get to Cordoba. Gives a chance for some of the guys behind Sean to get back on if they've been suffering up that hill. It was really strung out. We've got a group of about 35-40 riders at the front here of the string, who are in one particular group, and then some of the other guys behind will just work their way back to it as best they can.
Yeah, but it's going to be a difficult descent, as we can see here. It's a fast one, you know, 77 kilometers per hour the bunch is travelling at. So, you know, if you're 30 or 40 seconds off, it's always going to be majorly difficult to get back in there. And you know, if you have lost contact on the climb, well, you know, I think it's because you're tired, and you're back there with riders who have maybe no interest in getting back, because to fight back into the group, they're not going to get up there in the final sprint anyway. So the morale is lost a bit with a lot of the riders throughout the race. So I cannot see many riders coming back. But this group, I think it's quite a big group. There must be definitely 50, 60 riders here, and I think we're going to see that group certainly going on to the finish, and the number of riders getting back in, I think it will be minimal.
Carlos Barredo and Bettini having a bit of chat. Bettini pushing people back in or forward of him. He wants to just slide back through the middle. Sylvain Chavanel talking to his teammates just ahead at the moment of Stefan Schumacher. Schumacher is right up there. He was right up there towards the end yesterday, Schumacher, and I think he's in fairly good shape. Sitting about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 back in the middle of the shot in the light blue of Gerolsteiner. Has, as we said, been linked very possibly with a move to Milram, but nothing confirmed yet. For sure, nobody's going to let him go, because he's a talented rider and he's won some very good races. There will be teams interested in. I know a number of teams have expressed some interest, as they have in Bernard Cole, of course, surprised third on the Tour de France podium this year and winner of the mountains classification. He said, well, his manager has said, he speaks English, German and Flemish. It would make sense for him to go to a team where that is one of those is the main languages, wouldn't it now? So obviously draw your own conclusions on who is negotiating with him at the moment. Well, Valerio Agnoli, who wore the points jersey 2 days ago, is just pushing Alessandro Vanotti back in the line. Agnoli has a bit of trouble staying there at the moment. Bernati is wearing the 131 jersey. There he is. We've just gone over the top of him, looking in good shape. Didn't seem to be troubled at all yesterday, Sean, I didn't think. He seemed to be quite happy to sit at the front and do some work on the slopes running up to Jaén for Pipo Pozzato. Didn't seem to be breathing hard at all.
No, certainly. I think he certainly did a lot of the pulling along in that final 20-25 kilometers yesterday, and we see him doing a lot of turns on the front, and the tactic within the Liquigas team, I think, was Pozzato was the man yesterday, and especially with that sort of finish, it would certainly be a good one for Pozzato, but unfortunately he wasn't able to do the business in the end. Not too far off, but certainly not good enough to take on Valverde. But then Valverde was once again so impressive yesterday when he went for that sprint with 150 to 100 meters. There was just nobody able to cling to his wheel and finish like 2 seconds ahead of the rest of the bunch. It was so impressive once again. I think today Bernati is the man. It's a more of a roadman sprinter's finish today, because this flat run in, it's not anything of the difficulty as was yesterday.
Bernati exchanging some words with Alexander Kolobnev about why it didn't get away, I think. And he's a very popular guy within the peloton. He always makes a bit of an entertainment. He's a good showman, is Paolo Bettini. He knows about putting on a show, and that's important in cycling as well. It's good to see that he can do that. 9 kilometers to go then at the moment. Liquigas just maintaining their control at the front of this in terms of pace. We haven't seen much of Quick-Step. That does indicate that perhaps they're just waiting a little bit further down the line for Bowden to come to the front. He did yesterday, Sean. It took a while to get towards the front and then just slipped backwards a bit.
Yes, well, he appeared at the front a number of kilometres out, but the finish again, I think, was that little bit too difficult for Bonin, and he suffered in the end, as a lot of the sprinters did. Ferreira was also quite a bit off. He wasn't that front, that first group, but just very much to the rear of it. And Bernati, of course, we understand why he was doing a lot of the work, so he wasn't really going for the sprint yesterday, but certainly for the real big sprinters, it was a difficult run-in, and they had difficulty staying to the front in that final 3 kilometres where it kicked up and went all the ways to the line. And you look at the results, and we talked about Valverde finishing up there. It was the riders who can finish on these uphill run-ins very, very well, and that was certainly the opportunity for those guys yesterday. The train suited them perfectly.
The tough thing then about the finish today, it's not a difficult run in, Sean, really, and they're running down the Avenue de Carlos III and finishing off at the Avenue de la Nacia. And an easy-ish run in, a real sprinter's run in today.
Yes, I think certainly it's going to be a run-in and a finish for the real big sprinters, and the question is how many of them are in there. As we see, Bernati is certainly in there. Ferreira I haven't seen there, and Bonin I haven't seen. So that is the question. If they're in there, it will be certainly between the real big sprinters. But we see the Cofidis team there. There's 2 riders hanging in the front. Chavanel is still very much to the fore, and I think he's definitely going to have another go in the last number of kilometres. That's what he's a real specialist at, and I think this year he has succeeded a number of times, so the confidence is definitely really high with him, and I think we will see him certainly have a go, give it a try in the last number of kilometres.
I think you might see something from either someone like Gilbert or Ladagnou as well, from Francis de Jure. They might have a go a little bit further out as well. One of the Rabobanks may so there looks like Ferreira at the back there, is it? I think Oscar Ferreira is just hanging around at the back there. There he is, number 151. You can see the bands on the ends of his arms as a triple world champion. So he's there, but as yet not moved himself towards the front to do anything about it. He's talking to Juan Manuel Garate, who is going to Rabobank next year. 6 kilometres to go then. You'd have thought that Oscar Ferreira might want to be up towards the front by now.
Yes, it's surprising to see him, sitting back there, very relaxed, and talking with Garate, as you said, and seemed to be giving a signal to Garate, go back there and get Tom up here. maybe it was the orders, but certainly a long ways back in this bunch, which is certainly that's 60 riders in there, and it's surprising to see them. He's not moving up and trying to get into a position, but if you have a number of teammates around there, and you can get them to take you up in the last 5 or 6 kilometres, it is possible, and it's certainly not really at full bore here at the moment. They're not giving it 100%, so it is possible to move up in the final kilometres.
60 kilometres an hour is what they are being clocked at the moment. It is a downhill run, of course. One man we've not mentioned at all, there is a Milram rider up towards the front, is Eric Zabel. Once again, super Eric, super consistent Eric, up towards the front. I'm sure he will be, and you can't discount him. Certainly if some of the big boys have not managed to make it over the top or are not feeling too good. There is Oscar Ferreira still at the back with Garate just a little bit behind him. We're into the last few kilometres then as we run into Cordoba today. Paolo Bettini had a go earlier on, but has been brought back by the peloton, as was Sylvain Chavanel. Chavanel still sitting up towards the front. I think you're right, Sean. He's going to have another go, isn't he? But there's no way he'd be sitting up there normally. He seems to be lurking, waiting for something to happen. Where on earth does he think he'll be able to do it, I wonder, as they go under 4 kilometres? It's a pretty straight run in from now. There's not a lot more that he can do unless he has a go with possibly at the last bend, the 3 kilometre bend, I wonder. Still up there then, Eric Zabel could be a force today if it comes to it. Daniele Bernati is certainly the man with a mission, because his team are doing all the work on the front at the moment. Tom Bonin we've not seen, pushing the pace along there now. Milram, we've just been talking about Eric Zabel. What about Aurelien Clerc from Bouygues Telecom? He's been in pretty good form actually, Aurelien Clerc, in the last week or so, certainly from the Eneco Tour. From CSC as they go under 3 kilometers to go, Juan Jose Heredo. He's so up and down though, I don't know whether to pick him as a potential or not. Azan Bazayev, well, he'll be somewhere in the top 10 or 15 if it's a real fast sprint today. Oscar Freire still not to be seen quite at the front yet, or is that him moving up there now, Sean? No, it doesn't look like Freire. Still some way to go with to getting up to the front if that's what he wants to do, with 3 kilometers, less than 3 kilometers still to go. There's Chavanel on the left-hand side, and instantly Sean points at the screen, and away goes Sylvain Chavanel. And this is the that long turn that we just mentioned that he might want to have a go at. Spot on, Sean.
Well, yes, you could see, you know, he was just waiting for the moment, and surprising there's not a rider or a number of riders in his field, because you know, it's something, it's, you know, very familiar when he starts hanging about in that top 10-15 riders. You know, in the final kilometre he's going to have a go, and if you put a rider in a wheel and for a reason, you know, they don't really take up the chase, the teams for the sprinters don't take it up, you just never know. And as we can see, you know, Chavanel is going to hold off for a little while here. He can do that very well. He puts his time trial ability certainly into, you know, into it, and hangs out there for a while. But again, you know, it's just going to be impossible for him to do it, because a number of teams appearing here, as we see the Quick Step, Liquigas taking it up at the moment.
Yeah. Quick Step coming towards the front, doing the work. It'll be Tossato and Walter Valent doing most of the work. Kevin Van Impe working as well. There is Oscar Freire, miles down, not going to contest this one. Sure, it looks like Walter Valent has just gone backwards under the underpass then. And running in right the way to the finish now. Very, very short amount of time still to go. They swing slightly round to the left. And Quick Step and Liquigas taking it up on the front. Quick Step doing the shutting down of Sylvain Chavanel, and Liquigas now bringing up the charge once again. Quick Step adding to this. It's going to be a flat-out sprint. Where are the other contenders? It looks like Oscar Freire is nowhere to be seen at the moment, with under the 1K to go banner. Quick Step take up the charge. They're looking for Tom Bonin to take this victory, pulling over to the... Oh, that's very dangerous. He's right. They've got to move out into the centre. Thankfully, it's moving over to the right. Zabel in 1, 2, 3, 4th place. Bonin in 3rd, sitting behind Daniele Bernati. So it's going to be a 3-way sprint at the moment. Also sitting in there is Greg van Avermaet. We've just mentioned him. We mentioned him when we were talking about the Silence Lotto boys. Right now on the front, it's going to be Bernati who takes it up towards the front. Daniele Bernati's got Tom Bonin in his will. He knows what good form he's in at the moment. Bernati, Bonin comes by, real power. Bernati's got a kick. I think Bernati's just going to hold him off. No, Tom gets a wheel just ahead. That was very, very close indeed. I think Bernati went with an extra little bit of a kick, but couldn't quite hold off Tom Bonin, who was using his absolute power sprint for quite a way out from there. And Bernati, I think, almost getting it back, but not quite.
Yes, Bernati looked like he was going to, you know, come over Bonin, but again, we've seen that so many times. When you're in the wheel and you just come out and you get to the halfway point on the rider on the bike, the rider in front of you, and then it's difficult when you start taking the drafting, and I think that was that was the case here for Bernati certainly. But Bonin, you know, very, very powerful, and you know, position to take up the sprint just at the right moment. I think he certainly, you know, went for it.
He certainly did. Let's have a look from over the top. It's the ever-consistent Eric Zabel who takes 3rd. The two, Bonin, in fact, gets a lot further ahead of Bernati than it looked, actually, from head on. So victory for Quick Step with, I think, is it Patrick Salga from Crédit Agricole in there as well. I'll tell you what, Juan Antonio Fletcher is quite high up there as well in the top 10. Balan, you can see coming through. Bonin taking it by, I guess, a quarter of a bike length, maybe even more. It didn't seem like that from the foreshortening effect. And you think perhaps the guy from Crédit Agricole was Nicolas Roche there?
Yes, it looked like Nicolas Roche's style there, and he was in position about 250 metres out, and I think managed to get himself a nice position and finished very well up there. And it looked very much like Roche to me.
Well, we'll wait for the confirmation. Here we go. This is the stage. Oh, another good spot. Bonin, Bernardi, Zabel, Calder Fernandez, Roche, Van Avermaet, Leonardo Duque, Sebastian Ino, Tom Stamschneider, and Lloyd Mondori rounding out the top 10. Good victory for Bonin, but Daniele Bernati lying further up on the general classification, lying third overall at just 13 seconds back, takes 20 seconds of a bonus, having taken some points some seconds earlier as well, and he will take over the leader's jersey today. Nicolas Roche actually doing well, but losing out a little bit in terms, yeah, you can see him now, losing out a little bit as the sprint progressed. Bonin just an absolute tower of power today, and Bernati really having to dig deep to stay there, but he'll take over the gold leader's jersey for the day tomorrow. Victory though to Tom Bonin. Well, we hope you've enjoyed stage 3. We'll be back again tomorrow, Sean and I. Much more to enjoy here on the Vuelta of Spain from the two of us. Bye for now.